Dozens of Palestinian civilians, most of them children and women, were killed and others were wounded in a series of raids launched by occupation warplanes on Wednesday on various sites in the Gaza Strip. An army-run Mexican airline championed by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador takes to the skies promising lower fares than its main rivals. And the United Nations stated the impact of the conflict in Sudan was serious, particularly in terms of access to medical care. Hello, welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. Dozens of Palestinian civilians, most of them children and women, were killed and others were wounded in a series of raids launched by occupation warplanes on Wednesday on various sites in the Gaza Strip. In the 82nd consecutive day of the aggression of the occupation, aircraft launched violent raids targeting the central region of the Gaza Strip, especially the Bureij and the Al-Maghazi camps, where the shells reached shelter centers. Al-Nusayrat camp was also bombarded by occupation artillery and warplanes targeting family homes. Meanwhile, the areas of East City of Rafah and Khan Yunis in the south of the Gaza Strip are also being targeted. In Gaza City, more than 60 citizens were missing as a result of Israeli bombing near Al-Azhar University, and 6 people were killed as a result of sniper operations. Israeli attacks since October 7th have killed at least 19,650 Palestinians, a non-final toll hampered by conditions in the Strip. In Palestine, Prime Minister Mohammed Stayed, during a cabinet meeting in Ramallah, said that Israel is doomed to exist as a criminal state that violates the rights of Palestinian people.
Israel today is condemned before the world as a criminal and lawless state that kills with the intent to kill, starving people, making them thirsty until they die and displacing them to death. Israel today is at the rock bottom, and those who flock to support it in the early events have today become ashamed of it and have disavowed their support.
In this context, the Palestinian Prime Minister also called on the United Nations to deliver humanitarian aid to the population and thanks the Arab countries for their efforts in seeking a solution to the conflict, especially Egypt.
I call on the United Nations to work to deliver aid from all the crossings leading to the Gaza Strip, which are 5 crossings, and I welcome the decision of the UN Secretary General to appoint Ms. Sigrid Kaag as a special coordinator for international aid to the Gaza Strip. We welcome all Arab and international efforts to stop the aggression against our people and the amended Egyptian initiative. Egypt is certainly interested in the unity of Palestinian representation and that any regional or international agreement passes only through Palestinian legitimacy, represented in the Palestine Liberation Organization.
Demonstrators rallied in Ramallah for the release of Palestinian prisoners held by Israel in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip.
Since the events of October 7th, we haven't received any news about him, not a share of information. We are extremely fearful, particularly after hearing about the mistreatment of prisoners, reports of beatings, abuse, hunger, and exposure to cold water inside the prisons. My message to the resistance: may God grant them victory, steadfastness, and accuracy.
We're here demonstrating, demanding the release of Palestinian prisoners. The world is paying attention to the Israeli prisoners, but nobody is talking about 8,000 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails in the West Bank, including no less than 200 children and thousands of people under administrative detention, which means they are imprisoned without charges.
And Yemen's rebels claim responsibility for a missile strike against a ship in the Red Sea and a drone attack towards Israeli-occupied areas in Gaza.
The naval forces of the Yemeni armed forces, with the help of Almighty God, carried out a targeting operation against commercial ship MSC United with appropriate naval missiles. The targeting of the ship came after its crew refused 3 times calls from the naval forces as well as repeated warning shots. The Air Force and the Yemeni Armed Forces carried out a military operation with a number of drones against the military posts in the al-Rashrash and other areas in the occupied Palestine.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. An Army-run Mexican airline championed by President Andrés Manuel López Obrador takes to the skies promising lower fares than its main rivals. The launch of the Mexicana de Aviación comes after the government announced in August that it was buying the brand of the carrier that went bankrupt 13 years ago. Its main base is Mexico City's second international airport, Felipe Ángeles, from where it will serve more than a dozen domestic destinations. One of López Obrador's flagship projects, the new airport at the north of the capital, has struggled to attract carriers since opening in March 2022. Since taking office in 2018, López Obrador has given increased responsibility to the armed forces, in addition to their public security role, including control of ports and customs, as well as major infrastructure projects.
We want to inform our colleagues in the media about a historic event, the return of Mexicana airline after many years without flying. We are going to consolidate this airline in the time we have left in office, and we are sure that those who will replace us will finish the job of strengthening Mexicana de Aviación.
Bolivian prosecutors on Tuesday filed formal charges against 8 people, including former de facto President Janine Áñez and opposition leader Luis Fernando Camacho. The charges seek to put the defendants on trial for the case known as Coup 1, which led to the ouster of former President Evo Morales in 2019. In this sense, the prosecutor's office requested that all those involved in the case be sentenced to the maximum penalty for the crime of terrorism, which is 20 years in prison. Camacho is currently in preventive detention since December 28, 2022, while 3 other defendants are still fugitive from justice.
We are requesting the maximum penalty for the most serious crime, which is the crime of terrorism, that has been included in the indictments as the crime attribute. The persons accused in the indictment are Mr. Luis Fernando Camacho Vaca, Marco Antonio Pumari Arriaga, Luis Fernando López Julio, Williams Carlos Calimán Romero, Mr. Vladimir Yuri Calderón, Giannine Áñez Chávez. The crime of terrorism contemplates a penalty of 15 to 20 years imprisonment, so this will be the penalty that the public prosecutor's office at the time of the trial. At the conclusion stage, pleadings in any case will request the court hearing the trial to impose on the defendants.
Strong storms have hit the east coast of Australia since Christmas Eve, causing the death of at least 10 people. The storm has especially hit the northeastern state of Queensland. Torrential rains as well as winds of up to 100 kilometers per hour, floods and in some cases hailstorms left more than 124,000 people without electricity in southern Queensland, of whom 92,000 are still waiting for the service to be restored. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, Sydney, the country's most populous city, faced another afternoon of thunderstorms. And in the United States, firearms have caused 42,000 deaths by 2023. According to the data from the independent organization Gun Violence Archive, firearms were the cause of the death of more than 42,000 people in the United States. The statistics refer that 23,760 of these deaths were suicides and 18,507 were the result of unintentional shootings, murders, and defensive use. Finally, they detailed that more than 1,600 children between the ages of 0 and 17 died in incidents related to gun violence, and another 4,444 were injured. The nation's deadliest shooting in 2023 took place in October, when 18 people were killed and 13 more were injured at 2 locations in the U.S. town of Lewiston, Maine. Today, the nationwide death toll from gun-related events has risen to 42,151. And in Spain, a total of 112 people were rescued from 2 precarious boats near the Canary Islands, according to the country's Maritime Rescue and Safety Society. The authorities reported that after the rescue, the survivors were transferred to the Spanish city of Arrecife to receive immediate medical attention. According to the International Organization for Migration, in the course of this year, at least 868 migrants lost their lives or disappeared in an attempt to reach the Canary Coast from West Africa. The organization revealed that this figure exceeds the number of deaths in shipwrecks in 2022, when 559 deaths were registered. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. The United Nations called the impact of the conflict in Sudan serious, particularly in access to medical care. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs expressed concern over the more than 100% increase in cholera cases during the last month of the year. The situation is alarming, with some 8,300 suspected cases and more than 200 deaths reporting up to December 23rd. The UN highlighted that the humanitarian community in Sudan is working to support cholera detection and treatment, as well as vaccination campaigns, but ongoing fighting is hampering efforts. Jailed Senegalese opposition leader Ousmane Sonko has filed his candidacy for the February presidential elections with the Constitutional Council, despite the state's refusal to provide him with the necessary documents. Sonko's supporter Bassirou Diomaye Faye also filed his candidacy, as reported today by Ousloyo, an official of his dissolved party, PASTEF. Like other candidates, Sonko had until December 26 to file his candidacy and demonstrate the collection of enough signatures. Last week, the national body managing the election in Senegal did not provide Sonko's representative with the necessary documents to file his candidacy. His lawyers then said they would file the candidacy anyway, in the hope that the judiciary would be more responsive. 49-year-old Sonko was sentenced to 2 years in prison on June 1st on charges of corruption of minors. However, he has always denied these charges. On Monday, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, received the leaders of the Community of Independent States in St. Petersburg. According to local authorities, the leaders will take stock of the closing year, address issues of mutual cooperation, and discuss some topical international issues. In addition, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said that the countries of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Community of Independent States agreed to intensify military exchanges. He also said that the participants recognize the need to improve the mechanism for the exchange of security-related information and to hold operational and combat training exercises. Russia's economy has become the largest in Europe and now competes with Japan for the fourth place in the world. Russian presidential advisor Maxim Oreshkin said Moscow is ahead of all leading European Union countries. Oreshkin detailed that the nation is achieving a growth rate of the gross domestic product of up to 3.5% by the end of the year. The head of the Russian Central Bank, Elvira Nabiullina, said that the country's economy is being restructured. The government should be prepared for increased sanctions against the country. And major international banks have cut more than 60,000 jobs this year. By 2023, the world's 20 largest banks cut at least 61,905 jobs, according to the Financial Times. This contrasts with more than 140,000 jobs cut by the same banks during the global financial crisis of 2007 and 2008. The newspapers noted that the investment banks suffered a second consecutive year of falling fees due to the lack of public deals and quotas, so Wall Street is trying to protect profit margins through job cuts. The largest reductions of 20% occurred at the UK's Metro Bank, followed by Switzerland's UBS with 10%, and in the third place with Goldman Sachs with 7%. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories at our website at telesurenglish.net, and also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.